This is our weekly baseball wrap-up show. We are taking a look back at the Arkansas series, talking about what we just saw about Auburn versus Jacksonville State, and then, of course, looking ahead to the weekend that will be against Texas A&M. All that's coming up for Auburn baseball and our coverage of it right now. War Eagle Auburn family, and of course, a special War Eagle, and welcome to those of you that consider yourselves being a part of our E2C network family. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in to this live stream broadcast of our baseball coverage, our midweek recap, what you need to know, and Q&A session on the live stream afterwards to discuss the week that was week 6 for Auburn baseball. As I said at the top of the show, our show consists of a what you need to know, all the information from week 6, and then we will talk about any comments, questions, and topics that the live stream viewers want to discuss on today's stream. Let's get into it right away. Week 6 was Arkansas, Jack State, and then technically counting Texas A&M, at least our preview of it. I want to jump right into it with you right away so we can get to those Q&As at the end. Looking back at the weekend that was with Texas A&M, with Arkansas, you pretty much could interchange all these teams at this point because the SEC, we are just running through that gauntlet right now. So they're pretty interchangeable. But looking back at the Arkansas series, game 1, 2, and 3, the Tigers only are able to salvage one in the series, losing the first game 0-1. The second game 5-6, but taking that game 3 with Arkansas, the number 1 ranked Arkansas Razorbacks, 8-6. All those games obviously were in Auburn at Plainsman Park, and definitely I think the home field advantage played in Auburn's favor a lot throughout the games, and thankfully came out with a win at the end of it. As always, from the series, we want to give you the best player and the best pitcher that you need to be aware of. Obviously, there are a lot more contributions than just these two. We want to give you a little perspective about who the two best were. Not a shocking name to start off with the best bat. Ike Irish played in all 3 games, batting .400, 4 for 10, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 1 home run, 3 RBIs, 2 walks. He was hit by a pitch, and he was 1 for 1 on stolen bases. He currently has a hitting streak, at least at that point, a career best, matching his 10-game hitting streak. He also set up Cooper McMurray to drive in a 3-run home run to put the Tigers over the top in that finale game to get that win. He also had a home run in the 8th inning to extend that lead out a little bit further to make it a little bit more comfortable. Not as comfortable as probably as we would have liked, but comfortable enough to get the win against Arkansas in that final game. Your best pitcher on the weekend was Will Cannon, the closer, who made his 2 appearances, 1 save in 3 innings pitched, only 1 hit allowed, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and allowed a .111 batting average from the batters that he faced. He had a pair of scoreless outings, each against Arkansas. First time this season he has appeared twice in a weekend. Even though he is considered the closer, we have used a lot of people in that role. So it's good to see him actually be utilized multiple occasions in a very important SEC series. And it was his first save, technically, of the season in that finale with those 2 scoreless innings. Your storylines from the weekend and the highlights: the starting rotation was McBride. That's a new one. Alsop and Gonzalez. It was the first weekend start for Connor McBride, who is our midweek starter for so long. We'll be talking about that a little bit more here in just a second. No Carson Myers as a starter, which is a little bit interesting to see how that's going to be utilized going forward. But if you also look at how the week laid out, it was an early week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, much like this week will be for the weekend series. And thus, it maybe made a little bit more sense to keep Alsop and Joseph on what would be their supposed normal days. I'm not saying that's exactly what the decision was that went into it, but at least Connor got the opportunity to showcase his stuff on a weekend series against the number 1 team, which is really great for him. Game 1, the only scoring was in the first. It was a pitching duel, 2 games in a row that the Tigers at that point had only allowed a run in a single game. Game 2, Auburn struck first and responded each time with Arkansas scoring until the 8th and the 9th, where they pulled ahead the second time, losing to Arkansas by 1 run in as many games. And the really interesting thing from this game, I don't know if you all saw it. You probably need to go back and read about it, or if there's a replay for it. a umpire got actually hit pretty hard in his mask off a ricochet and a bat, and it was like a 30-minute plus delay to get another umpire in there to do his specific duties behind the plate. I guess the ones out there weren't qualified to do that. Just an interesting note from that game. Game 3, big runs in the 4th for Arkansas, but a bigger 6th inning for the Tigers with a program record 5,087 fans watching in attendance. That was a really great thing to see. Cooper McMurray hit that 3-run home run to send us on into that victory. And obviously a few more runs after that, but he was the one that sparked it and put us in the driver's seat. Our Auburn and Arkansas were tied in runs for the series. These are some interesting notes from the series, which if you really think about that, the number 1 overall team, the Tigers, got just as many runs across the plate as they did. Obviously, you would think and hope that the win column would look a little bit better with that stat. You're facing the number 1 team after all, but take that for what you will. Just an interesting note. It was the largest come from behind victory of the season and the second of the week for the Tigers in the Arkansas series. Auburn has matched its stolen base total for the season with 47 in only 23 games, and that being compared to last year. So in only 23 games, they have just as many stolen bases. That's important. We saw that a lot tonight in the midweek game too. This was the second highest attended 3-game weekend series in program history. I bet we break that at some point this season. Your Tigers ended the weekend with being ranked still, even after taking 2 losses in some of the rankings, number 21 overall currently. And it varies on which ones you look at, where they are and aren't ranked. Let's talk about now what we just witnessed at Jacksonville State, what we're actually broadcasting and live streaming right after. The Tigers win 13-3, a run rule victory. Starter tonight, Christian Herberholtz, which means that we will likely see Connor McBride this weekend since he's not in the slot or pitched at all tonight. Your other pitchers that we got to see, Dylan Watts, Petrovic, and Zach Crotchfeld, which was good to see him out there. Second straight start for Christian Herberholtz out there on the mound in the midweek game. McBride may be a permanent addition to that rotation/utilization on the weekend from now on. And I think he's earned it. So that's really exciting to see. Jacksonville struck first, but Auburn's 4th and 5th innings, 7 runs and then 5 runs respectively, really is what the difference in here. Home runs from Ike, Chris Stanfield, Mason Mainers, and then Cooper McMurray with another home run, but not just a home run, a grand slam, leading to that run rule victory in the 7th. A couple other notes from this game. Kay Ballou got to start out in left field, which is not something you see a whole lot, but just a really interesting lineup difference. Was a rain delay tonight, but didn't really matter that much. Did maybe got things off to a little bit slower start for the Tigers, but they obviously made up for it. A little bit of an Auburn connection, director of player development on the other side, former director of player development, Aaron Everett with Jacksonville State. So good to see them. We've seen that a lot this season, a lot of former Tigers coming back to the Plains. This makes the Tigers, I think now, if I have my numbers correct, 6-0, maybe 7-0, 6-0 in midweek games. Their record now stands at 16-8 on the year. And finally, in the what you need to know, what we're looking ahead to. Whew. Y'all ready? It doesn't end here, and it's not going to end for long. Texas A&M, number 4 currently, Texas A&M, 21-3. They just completed their midweek game with Houston Christian 6-3 getting the win. They also have an impressive win over number 14 Texas at the time. Their only losses with those 3 losses coming at the hands of SEC teams, so completely undefeated in their non-conference play. They lost to Florida twice, number 8 Florida, and then number 21 Mississippi State last weekend. Their games for Auburn will be hosted at obviously their field, Bluebell Park, I think is what it's called. The games will be Thursday at 6, Friday at 6, and then Saturday at 7. All those times are Central times. Third SEC series for the Tiger, third top 10 SEC series for the Tigers. And just as a reminder for what they accomplished last week, they did get the series win over Mississippi State 2-1, losing that one game. The wins were 6-3. 6-1 in games 1 and 3, and that mid-weekend game was 1-5 loss. I really don't know what to make of this Texas A&M team in terms of what their strength is, just based off of looking at scores and stuff like that. Are they a pitching team? Are they a running team? They're an SEC team. That's all you need to know. So there it is. Your look back at the Wheat Six, obviously looking back at Arkansas, talking about and analyzing what we just saw with Jacksonville State, and then looking ahead to our next series with Texas A&M. We love to move in now, an opportunity for you all to get your comments and questions in to discuss what you just saw, what you saw last weekend, or maybe some things that you're thinking about going into next week. And so go ahead and get those in now. This is a good opportunity for us to touch on a few of those things. And we'll do that after I give you these few reminders for what we have coming up here on E2C Network next for you all in terms of live stream content. If you're not going to join us tomorrow night, we'd love for you to. Wednesday night live stream, call-in show, the Auburn Family Night. It's going to be at 8 Eastern time. Would love to have you all here just to talk about anything and everything Auburn related. And then Sunday night, we've got the Auburn Experience live recording, episode 72. Join us for that as well. We'd love to see some of your smiling virtual faces there hanging out with us. All right, we got a lot of people checking in with us. Congratulations to Zach Crotchfeld. I see that his mother is here tonight hanging out with us. If I could bring my studio thing down. So congrats that I know you're excited to see him get to close out the game for the Tigers tonight. Always excited to see him out there on the field. A lot of fine folks checking in from all the different places out there. Anything on y'all's minds, anything that you'd like to point out that you saw tonight? I guess one thing that I would be interested to hear, did anybody watch that Friday game, the middle game of the series with the umpire that got injured? That was it seemed like a very light hit to start off with. Take you back a little bit. Obviously, he's back behind the plate. A ball is fouled off, and I forget if I think Auburn was at bat. Hits him pretty square in the mask, and he kind of falls back, obviously from the force of it, but obviously from being rattled. And as he stood up, and not just the trainers from Auburn and from Arkansas came over, he just never really seemed to kind of get a sense of what happened there. Almost knocked him out, Bryant said. I don't know that it didn't knock him out completely, at least for a second or so, because the way he just couldn't, even on TV, if you looked at him, he just had that far off look where he kind of just didn't really feel comfortable with himself. Angela clarifying here that it was Ike. I thought it was. So thank you for clarifying. So we know how much power Ike has. Imagine just getting a foul ball from him, and that alone probably hurt just as much, even with a mask on. So that's what happened. And it was, he went limp for a second. It became a very, I think scary is too hardcore of a word to use there, but it became very concerning for his well-being. But I think he got evaluated, and I haven't heard anything about that. But the funny thing is it took like 30 minutes for us to get an umpire to come back in. And that was interesting to see. Something else that I want to point out here, I want to talk about starting rotation. If anybody else has some thoughts on this tonight. So we've mentioned a lot about Connor McBride being such a great starting pitcher for us to start the year in the midweek game. Did so well that he is moving into the weekend being utilized. In fact, starting like we talked about last week. But what's more interesting is what's going to happen going forward, because you had Chase Alsop and Joseph Gonzalez were always going to be in people's minds in the starting rotation. You also had, and I'm blanking on his name in this exact moment, not Connor McBride, but Kyle Carson Myers, thank you, who was really so far in that third slot the best so far, the best start of all three of those guys, I felt like. And now having Connor McBride being moved into weekend utilization as a starter or otherwise really makes that interesting. I wonder if we're going to see kind of a rotation of who actually gets to start outside of maybe Chase and Joseph. You would expect them potentially to start. But here's what I do know, and I want to point something out here. I think it's very clear that Auburn is a very great hitting team. And to talk about that in a second, a great hitting team. And one of the things that they needed to continue to shore up was more consistent pitching. But look at what's just happening with this weekend setup here. You've got three solid guys, definitely, and now a fourth one being added to the mix who can potentially start slash come in if one of those three doesn't get off to a great start and then take over as that long reliever. I think that's beautiful. Is if we can now have Herberholtz, whoever, but Herberholtz is who's getting two in a row now in the midweek, getting off to these great starts in midweek games and taking care of that the way we hit in the midweek game. I'm starting to feel really secure about our pitching makeup of the staff. That's just kind of how I feel about it at this point. WT asks, this may sound like a stupid question, but is there a way to see Auburn baseball on TV streaming? And Angela answered that for you. I love having Angela here because she just gives all the great information. You could watch them on War Eagle Plus, and I'm just sounding like I'm a walking advertisement for Auburn at this point, or SEC Network Plus a lot of the times. Now, some of these games are going to be on traditional SEC Network. I don't think Auburn's going to be on ESPN or anything like that this year. But SEC Network, the main one that I believe a few of those games they've already announced that they will be on. But SEC Network Plus, if you've got some of these major packages, you can watch them online. ESPN Plus, Bryant pointed out, that's a good one too, to keep in mind. Basically, just make sure you can get a plus. If you're not sure that you can access it on your smart TV, your Roku, whatever you're using to stream these days, if you go and download the ESPN app on there and go to the game, you can find out, A, do you already have access? B, can I log in with my credentials for a whatever your streaming service is, a Hulu, a YouTube TV, a Comcast, or whatever else you've got going on right there. Those are ways that you can potentially view it. I have time for a few more comments and questions and topics if y'all have them. But one other thing that I wanted to mention, and they talked about it a lot on the broadcast tonight, was how proficient, and we mentioned the stat earlier, about stolen bases and how that was something that the coaches probably put a lot of emphasis in, clearly by the way it's being emphasized and how we're utilizing it and having success with it early in the season. But how now that the team is really flourishing batting wise and taking advantage of those stolen bases, that's really becoming a lethal combination for the Tigers against people, especially against some of these really challenging SEC pitching staffs. They're going to really be tested by them because if they get on base, they're a threat to steal, which is going to make things really uncomfortable for the pitcher and the catcher and the team as a whole, and give some of these big power hitters up and down the lineup an opportunity to do something big. So to me, I think that's something that can be easily missed in all this with the grand slams and the home runs, but don't sleep on this ability of this team with base running and stolen bases. It's pretty fun to watch right now, and I'm having a lot of fun covering it, yes, but talking about it as well. I think that's going to do it for our week 6 live stream, where we obviously gave you the what you need to know, back talking about Arkansas, now discussing the Jack State and looking ahead to Texas A&M. And of course, we got into your comments and questions. I want to thank you all for joining me. As always, we'd love for you to smash the like button on your way out. Make sure you tell a friend to join us here for these post-game streams on Tuesday. We love covering Auburn baseball, and we'll continue doing it throughout the rest of the year. I appreciate you all being here. Thanks for being part of our little family within the Auburn family. Till I talk to you again, War Eagle.